Conspiracy theories have been made mainstream over the past decade, from beliefs of your favorite celebrities being part of a new world order to people saying the earth is flat. We have been left wondering if some of the things we hear are true or false. Today, we are going to be looking at top 5 of the biggest NBA conspiracies of all time. Number 5. How old is Thon Maker? In 2011, now former NBA player Thon Maker was supposedly an 8th grader that could literally do anything on the court. Maker was a giant among his peers and could dunk the ball and make scoring look easy. Years later, Maker was entering the 2016 NBA draft, but just days before the draft, it was revealed by several sources that Maker was actually 21 to 23 years old and not 19. This news made the NBA world go crazy. This sparked posts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and most importantly, Reddit. One thread on Reddit spoke about the scandal, and one user claimed to be the friend of a girl sister who graduated in 2010 with Thon Maker. This would have meant that Maker was actually 23 at the time of the draft, and he graduated from high school twice, once in 2010 and once from a prep school in 2016. Another piece of evidence supporting this is the fact that a scout named Edward Smith discovered Maker during the summer of his initial graduation. This is so important to the story because Smith is known to work with Sudanese players and has a reputation of getting fake birth records for his clients. It is believed that Maker lost his birth records when he was a refugee in Sudan, and Smith saw talent in Maker, so he decided to give Thon fake birth records to make him 4 years younger than he really is, and give him another chance at basketball. Thon then transferred from Australia to Canada, redid high school, and got himself a first-class ticket into the NBA. Number 4. Twin Magic. In 2017, the Eastern Conference semifinals saw a matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. Markieff Morris was one of the most important players to the Washington Wizards during the 2016-2017 season and was looking to have an impactful series against the Celtics. But during Game 1, it looked as if Morris's season was over after a scary ankle injury. If you look at the footage, Morris's ankle rolled completely to the right, and the injury at first glance seemed really serious. But miraculously, 2 days later, Markieff was suited up for the Wizards for Game 2. It looked like he was back to his normal self, and he played like the injury never happened. Morris scored 16 points after a potential season-ending injury. This sparked hundreds of thousands of fans to question the injury of Morris, and it started one of the biggest conspiracies in the modern NBA. People wondered, was it actually Markieff playing, or was it his identical twin brother Marcus? You're probably thinking to yourself, this conspiracy theory is so far-fetched and crazy, but there is a lot of evidence to support that this conspiracy theory is indeed true. One of the most important pieces to this puzzle is the fact that Marcus Morris was playing for the Detroit Pistons at the time, and the Pistons were not even close to being in the playoffs during the 2016-17 season, with a record of 37-45. Being the 10th seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, as for the evidence, both Morris twins actually admitted that they have done a swap in the past. In an interview, Markieff actually said, "We did it before an AAU ball. It was on the bench. It happened real quick. He had hurt his ankle and I had fouled out. I gave them a little limp back in like I was hurt and kept playing." And this is not the first time they have done it. They have both admitted to a swap at least once or twice again after that while playing AAU basketball, which means that the twins have experience switching spots and helping each other out in tough situations. Another piece of evidence that supports this conspiracy theory is the fact that Marcus and Markieff have identical tattoos. If you look side by side at a picture of both twins, you would see that they have the exact same tattoos from head to toe, and down to every detail, all of their tattoos match up, which gives them an opportunity to perform a switch whenever they need to. Only the twins know if this conspiracy is actually true or not, and we may never find out if the swap actually happened. We could just be underestimating the bone strength and durability of Markieff's ankle, for all we know. Or we could have just witnessed one of the biggest finesse moves in NBA history. Number 3. MJ suspension. It is well known that Michael Jordan retired from basketball in the summer of 1993 to go play baseball for the Chicago White Sox minor league baseball team. During the time of his retirement, though, Jordan was being investigated by the NBA for his gambling problem. MJ was a big gambler and was known for betting big bucks at casinos and during friendly golf games against his friends. There is a lot of evidence that supports the fact that Jordan was a gambling addict back in the 90s, but that was a time before social media and before the lives of athletes were made public for the world to see. So at the time, people did not know about Jordan and his gambling addiction, and they wondered what the reason was for an investigation on the NBA's most beloved player. The reason for his investigation was because Jordan was actually forced to testify to a federal judge about a money laundering scandal that involved a cocaine dealer by the name of James Slim Buhler. Buhler was searched by the police, and during the search, the feds found a check for $57,000 written out to Slim from none other than Michael Jordan himself. This put the league in an immediate panic because Jordan was the main reason why the NBA was so successful in the 90s. But the NBA did not want to suspend Jordan for his personal problems. But what did pressure the NBA to suspend Jordan was the fact that Jordan was spotted at a casino in Atlantic City right after Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals. But Commissioner David Stern did not want to tarnish the reputation of the NBA or Jordan by making the suspension public. This is where the conspiracy theory starts. It is believed that Stern and Jordan had an agreement behind closed doors which saw MJ being suspended from the NBA as a punishment for his gambling during the playoffs, but Stern did not want the news to break out that the NBA's poster boy was being suspended, so this is where Jordan's retirement comes into play. Just 2 days after Jordan's retirement from the NBA, David Stern announced that the investigation of Jordan was being wrapped up because there was no evidence of any sort of Jordan's gambling, even though they could have written a book full of Jordan's gambling history during his career in the NBA. This whole situation was just so suspicious because Jordan is known for being the most intense competitor in NBA history. So why would he just quit on the game that he loves and was so dominant at, just to become a mediocre minor league baseball player when he was coming off a three-peat with the Chicago Bulls? Number 2. Did Wilt actually score 100 points? On March 2nd, 1962, the late great Wilt Chamberlain scored a historic 100 points in a single game while playing for the Philadelphia Warriors. The game Wilt scored 100 points in was against the New York Knicks, but the Knicks were lackluster competition for Wilt. The Knicks entered that game with a 27-45 record and had the second worst record in the league at the time. Darrell Inhofe was in charge of guarding the Big Dipper and had a nightmare of a contest against him. Wilt went 36 of 63 from the field with an impressive 28 of 32 from the free throw line. But rumor has it that this game actually never happened. I know this might seem crazy, but there's actually little evidence of this game even happening. Yes, it was 1962 and we did not have the same technology as we have today, but basketball started being televised on TV screens in 1940, and somehow with Wilt Chamberlain being one of the biggest attractions in basketball, it is hard to believe that this game was not even televised in one home around all of America, 22 years after basketball started being broadcasted on TV. The only real piece of evidence that shows Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game is a piece of paper that could have been drawn up by anybody in the entire world. The paper read, Philadelphia, and in parentheses, 169. And if you just look a little farther down, you see Chamberlain, 36 field goals, 28 from 32 free throws, 2 fouls, 100 points. That piece of paper is the only concrete evidence that we have of the historic night. We literally have more evidence of aliens building the pyramids in Egypt than we have of the 100-point game from Wilt Chamberlain in 1962. And you're probably wondering, well, didn't they broadcast the game through radio back in the 60s? The answer to that question is yes, but the only piece of recorded radio broadcast from the 100-point game was when Wilt scored the 100th point. They didn't have evidence of the 50th point he scored, or the 25th point he scored, or even the first point he scored. They only have recording from the 100th point that Wilt Chamberlain scored. It is just hard to believe that such a monumental night barely has any sort of record that it even happened, and there's a good chance that Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game never even took place to begin with. Number 1. The folded envelope. In 1985, one of the biggest markets in the NBA was New York, and the New York Knicks were one of the most marketable teams in all of sports at the time. But the Knicks were just downright a bad team in 1985. This lost the NBA and former commissioner David Stern so much money because if New York had a star player at the time, jersey and ticket sales would skyrocket and make the NBA more money than you can even imagine. And looking over at college basketball, one of the biggest prospects in NBA history was about to be drafted and revolutionize any team that he would be on. This was a perfect opportunity for David Stern to make the New York Knicks one of the best teams in the NBA. Now, who was this prospect, and why would they have been so revolutionary? Well, we are talking about none other than NBA legend Patrick Ewing. Ewing was a 7-foot-tall, 240-pound center from the University of Georgetown. In college, Ewing averaged 15.3 points, 3.4 blocks, and 9.2 total rebounds during his 4 monumental years in college. Now, we have heard of many rigged NBA lotteries in the past, but none compared to this one. Because during the 1985 NBA Draft Lottery, we saw one of the most blatant cases of rigged odds in the lottery. This was a year that the NBA all of a sudden changed the coin flip lottery to picking cards out of a huge plastic ball. It was suspicious at first, but nobody really saw anything wrong with it until lottery night came around. If you look at the footage carefully, you can see all of the envelopes look perfectly normal, except for one. One of the envelopes were clearly bent at the edge, and this is how the NBA rigged the lottery. David Stern handpicked every card one by one and somehow left only one card, and that one was bent at the edge, and he gave them the first pick. Atlanta was given the 5th pick, the Supersonics were given the 4th pick, the Clippers were given the 3rd pick, and the Indiana Pacers were given the 2nd pick. And of course, the New York Knicks were given the 1st pick with the bent envelope. The Knicks went on to improve year by year with their star Patrick Ewing. Although the Knicks never won a ring with Ewing, they did become one of the best teams in the late 80s all the way until the mid-90s, with Ewing on their roster, and made the NBA billions of dollars in revenue.